Welcome, 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 welcome to the Tourism Australia and Virtuoso Great Destinations and Experiences of Australia webinar. My name is Quentin Long and I am the co-founder of Australian Traveller and International Traveller magazines and websites. And it's my great pleasure to be your host today. Today, we're going to have a fabulous journey through the cultural heritage of contemporary Australia. And it's not just the heritage, but it's the ways that we can engage with it. These experiences are profound and amazing. I was amazed at what we can actually do. The cultural attractions of Australia are one of the 8 experiences that, or 8 collectives that form part of the signature experiences of Australia. These are the world-leading experience providers that deliver enriching, personalised, transformative experiences to all travellers. And after our journey through the cultural attractions, I'll actually be introducing you to 2 Virtuoso partners that are right here in Australia. One of them is an absolute secret gem, and one of them is one of my favourite city hotels. So you have to check in, you'll have to wait for me to reveal those to you later. Now, a quick bit of housekeeping. If you do have a connection issue, don't worry. Just use the same link that you logged in on. It's not mission impossible. It doesn't self-destruct after 10 seconds. Now, look, if you do continue to have some connection issues, still don't worry. We will have a live recording of this available to you. All you have to do is email your best friend in the world, also known as your Virtuoso travel advisor, and they'll be able to provide you a link. And the second part of housekeeping is probably the most important. While I'm having a lot of fun doing this, I'm not here for my own amusement. I'm here to help you find your next great Australian experience. And to do that, we need to help you answer all your questions. So please, use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Now, I'm a guy, so I can't host and answer questions at the same time. The Virtuoso guys will be doing that for me. And finally, if we don't get to your question, because I'm anticipating there might be quite a few, remember, your travel advisor is a wealth of knowledge. Just drop them a line because they'll be able to help you out, connect you to the right information, and maybe, just maybe, put together a fabulous new itinerary that you never thought of out of today's efforts. So enough of the housekeeping. It's time for us to start looking at the cultural heritage of this wonderful country. And the cultural attractions of Australia had me at a 100-year-old scoreboard that I could put my son's name on. That's right, the Adelaide Oval. I could put my son's name on it, take a selfie with it, and also obviously have him with me. And when I thought about that, my heart absolutely melted. But then I thought, you know what? My other son would hate that. But do you know what he'd love to do? He'd love to get on the stage at the Sydney Opera House and wax lyrical, probably pull a few TikTok dance moves, may frustrate other people, but I'd love it. And that's what it's all about, right? And then I've left out my lovely wife. What would she love to do? How about an exclusive degustation dinner at the NGA after closing hours? With a dessert that's inspired by Jackson Pollock's Blue Poles. What an amazing experience that would be for us. And maybe, just maybe, she would actually forgive me for whatever crimes I did in 1972, but we'll have to wait and see. So that's just the tip of the iceberg of some of the great cultural attractions that you can experience and ways to engage with them that are very, very different. Now, to get us below the waterline, we've got to bring in an expert. And today, representing the cultural attractions of Australia, we have Jane Ross. G'day, Jane.
Hey, Quentin, how are you?
Not bad for an old bloke. Jane, you have a fabulous collection of experiences to run through today. I'm not going to ask you what's your favourite, but to me, what amazes me is just the breadth of experiences we have in this country that people can access in very unique and different ways.
Yeah, that's right. And we're really excited because we only launched in 2019, and this has really been the first opportunity on a large scale that people now have the opportunity to scratch the surface a bit amongst some of Australia's most iconic cultural attractions.
Excellent. And I know you prepared a little bit of a presentation for us. So why don't you run us through it?
Absolutely. Okay, so today, thank you very much, Quentin, and thank you, Virtuoso. So in terms of cultural attractions of Australia, we do represent some of Australia's most iconic cultural attractions. Just here, you've got Port Arthur Historic Site in Tasmania. Port Arthur Historic Site is World Heritage listed. as are two of our other members, the Fremantle Prison and the Sydney Opera House. So I suppose both the attractions, but also the way you get to scratch the surface, gives you the opportunity to see some of what we have to offer with international eyes. All of the experiences we offer provides some sort of exclusive access or exclusive opportunity to experiences across all number of different attractions. And of course, I'm assuming that because you're here today, all of you are experienced travellers, and that's really what our experiences are geared towards. Whether or not it be experiencing a behind the scenes with a curator at the Australian National Maritime Museum, or through to having dinner with one of the fellows that's changed Australia's cultural landscape, and I'll come to that in a minute. So in terms of our remit, I suppose when you talk about cultural experiences, the word culture in itself is vast. So we cover off museums, or the arts, I should say, the visual arts, our cultural heritage, our sporting heritage, and also our performing arts. So here we have the Museum of Old and New Art, which many of you will know as Mona. The G here, as well as Quentin mentioning Adelaide Oval as well. We've got great performing arts facilities and some great immersive experiences there too. And our cultural heritage really gives a sense of, and I suppose collectively, what makes us us. So to just talk a little bit about what you might expect, access to expert guides, curators, conservators, pre or post opening access, access to people who have changed Australian cultural landscape, immersive experiences, as I've mentioned, behind the scenes access, and sometimes the opportunity to take away photos or footage or signed memorabilia as those keepsakes for these bucket list experiences. I'd now like to take you through, just have a little bit of a deep dive into some of these experiences. And at this point, I should mention, there are some of our experiences that are currently not available. The ones I'm taking you through today are the ones that are available or are just about available, and I'll point to those as well. So here we've just travelled over to WA, and this is the Fremantle Prison. The Fremantle Prison is a remarkable site, even in terms of how it was conceived. At the time of colonisation, the decision to take prisoners to WA and to Perth was made really in a hurry. And so all of a sudden they needed to build a facility to hold all these prisoners. So these poor prisoners arrived in Perth and were told to build their prison. So this is the kind of end result of a whole lot of toil and labour from prisoners who built this remarkable building. And the experience that Fremantle Prison offer is to actually get some insights into the prisoners themselves. Their experience is called Art Behind Bars, and it actually, with an expert guide, and you can see that tour taking place in the top right-hand corner. With an expert guide, you get some insights into how they actually got the materials into the prison in the first place, what they were thinking, which is quite interesting, when they were painting some of these artworks, and then also some of the stories about why they were in the prison as well. Now, I won't go into too much detail here, but I do want to show you, there's the names plate down there in the bottom right corner there. That's what Quentin was talking about before. It's a beautiful opportunity to actually put your name in that names plate. Of course, you'll put a century in. I mean, why wouldn't you? You've got the opportunity. But also to learn about the heritage of this remarkable facility. It's one of the most pristine. In fact, it is the most pristine in the Southern Hemisphere. And some of the detail in preserving this site is absolutely remarkable. As you go through, you'll see, and I think you can just see it, just where you can see the blue and red covering over to the edge of the oval. You can see some vines. Those vines are the original vines that were grown at the Adelaide Oval. And there's stories about sending those vines off. They did a renovation not so long ago, and sending those vines off to a nursery so that they were preserved and replanted, and here they are again. So it really is an ideal opportunity to explore just some of the detail and the respect for this venue. There's also the opportunity, and I'm sure that some of you have heard about the roof climb before. we put a little bit of a twist on that. And at the end of the roof climb, and I should specify the end of the roof climb because it does involve alcohol, you get to stand on a viewing platform and have a glass of local bubbly or local wine, and also a shared, well, not a shared in COVID times, a local tasting plate, looking out at the remarkable view of Adelaide. And here we have Mona. These guys have created 3 amazing experiences. This super that you can see on the screen here relates to their Rockstar Afternoon experience. And it really sets the tone for some of the Mona experiences. I do encourage you to talk to your agent about the experiences that are on offer in Mona and all of the others as well. But there's Rockstar Afternoon, the Full On Terrell, and James Terrell is one of the most recognised light installation artists in the world. And Mona is actually home to the largest collection in the Asia Pacific. So this gives you the opportunity to really immerse yourself in his works, as well as staying in their beautiful pavilions. But I suppose their piece de resistance is what they call Dinner with David. And that's Dinner with David Walsh, the founder of Mona. And because Mona have quite a unique way of telling their stories, so I thought I'd just read out a little bit about how they describe this experience. Mona is in famous maths nerd David Walsh's private museum. It's his brainchild. He's to blame. So why not have a private dinner with him and take him to task? Sure, he's a terrible conversationalist, what with all that art and astrophysics chat, but the rest of this experience should be incredible. And I'd encourage you to just learn a little bit more about that experience. But just to conclude, and where they conclude, is David may invite you to play him at tennis on Mona's not-so-private court at the museum entrance. Avoid this. His serve volley game is too strong. So there you go, at your peril. Oh, so here we go. We're just crossing over to Port Arthur Historic Site, also in Tassie, and as I mentioned, another one of our World Heritage listed sites. These guys have created a premium experience called the Wheel of Fate. And as you could imagine, many of the convicts that came to Australia, some of them were hardened criminals, some of them were here because they'd stolen a loaf of bread. So this experience really talks about some of those stories, and it takes you after hours into various areas within the site, many of which are not readily available to the general public. And then an add-on to this, which really does give you the opportunity to experience some of our iconic attractions with international eyes, is they can actually get a conservator on site to talk about the significance of this building, to talk about what makes it a World Heritage listed site. And of course, as you can see off to the side here, they also have a meal on site, and they really take an incredible amount of care about actually showcasing some of the great local produce that we all are so familiar with that Tassie has to offer. Talking about significant buildings, none more so than our Sydney Opera House. And this one you may or may not know, this one has actually been called an act of human genius. So that's in terms of its World Heritage listing, it's cited as a human masterpiece. So for us to have access to this site and to be able to engage with it, it really is a truly remarkable site. And the experience I'm talking about today gives you the opportunity to experience a private aria in Australia's most iconic venue. You can see some images there. I've actually been privy to this experience, and it is truly remarkable. Some arias that no doubt you will be familiar with, very emotive in this site, and then the opportunity to meet with the pianist and the opera performer after, as well as dine in the Sydney Opera House. And then, as Quentin's mentioned, I'm not so sure about the TikTok moves, but nonetheless, there is the opportunity to get on the stage of the Sydney Opera House, and this is part of an Opera Australia experience. It's a 2-day experience, absolutely a bucket list experience, where you get to be fitted for a costume. You go in, you have your own dressing room. You can see the lights in that middle shot there, where you actually have someone doing your hair, doing your makeup. You meet with the director beforehand, who talks to you about what you're to do, and then you actually perform in an opera at the Sydney Opera House. So absolutely a bucket list experience. Also in Sydney, the Australian National Maritime Museum, 3 experiences here. There is one experience they offer where you can actually dine on a boat. It's an Edwardian steamboat called Ina, beautifully restored, and you can actually go out on the harbour for an afternoon, for a lunch or for a dinner with up to 30 people and experience the Sydney harbour on this beautifully restored boat. As I cited at the intro as well, there's also some other hands-on experiences, or not so much hands-on, but where you really get to see where the conservators work or behind the scenes of their collection, and much of their collection is actually on site. Canberra, we are blessed with 4 members in Canberra, and Canberra, as you would know, our national capital is also home to our national collections. So here we have the National Museum of Australia. You can actually go up in a hot air balloon with a museum expert to talk about the significance of Canberra, the design aspects of Canberra, as well as the museum. And designed by Walter Burley Griffin, Canberra really does have an interesting story in terms of being a city that has been fully designed. So that's a great opportunity, which then takes you down into the museum to have breakfast and an before hours experience. There's also one where they take you out to the shed. You get to see their off-site collections, which are mammoth. And then also where they really highlight some of their 6 key, this is all about their social history, or our social history, and 6 really key moments in our social history. It's almost like a passport to Australia. Now, here's the Jackson Pollock inspired dessert down in that bottom right-hand corner. And then up the top, there's a Japanese artist, Kasama, and that is the inspiration for that work as well. This is 6 of our iconic artworks that are housed, and when I say ours in terms of they're part of our national collection, but they represent artists and, you know, incredibly well-known artists across the world. 6 artworks that celebrate the collection of the National Gallery of Australia, and then the dining experience that follows, all after hours, access to a curator, and then the private meal afterwards. Now, this one is obviously the Australian War Memorial. The War Memorial is one of the most significant of its kind in the world. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this experience. This is one where they can custom build. So up where you see the lady in the archives there, you can actually talk about if you've got a personal family member who went to war as part of one of Australia's sort of ventures into war, you can actually let them know, and they can pull out some specific information for this tour. Otherwise, they can take you on a journey around their sites, but also give you some of the stories. And there's one, I'm just going to quickly talk about this one. When I did this, we went behind the scenes and they brought out a tin of Anzacs, and they talked about the story behind this tin of Anzacs. And this tin of Anzacs was decades old, and it had been sent by a mother to her son on the battlefields. The son had received the Anzacs and he thought, oh, wait, I'll go off to battle. I'll come back and I'll share these with my friends. And I think you know where this is going. He didn't come back from the battlefield. And on that tin of Anzacs, they stamped a stamp that said dead and sent it back to the mother. And that was the brutal reality of her finding out that her son had passed. And she hung on to that tin of Anzacs for the rest of her life. And every time she moved house, the removalist truck would come, they'd put in all the furniture from the house, but she would hang on to that tin of Anzacs in the front seat of the car as she'd go to the new house and keep it in her lap. And it took the journey with her, yeah, as I say, for the rest of her life. Now, that's the first time I've told that story without tearing up. But there's all of those kind of experiences and stories that are told, which are delightful. Going to Parliament. Parliament Australia's Parliament House, one of the few parliaments in the world that you can actually get access. It's very important to our democracy. And this is a behind the scenes access experience to the art and furniture collections. Every part of this building is considered: the architect, the furniture, where the wood has been sourced from, and obviously the artists that have been commissioned to do the artwork. It's an incredible journey, and made even more special by the commitment of the on-site chef, who's a hatted chef, and his commitment to sustainable food. There's a high tea in a site normally reserved for dignitaries, and you actually get to have a high tea on site, and it's likely you'll get some honey from the beehives on site as well as part of that high tea. And here, this is Australia's outback culture, Qantas Founders Museum up at Longreach. These guys give you a tour of the site. It's the only place in the world where you can actually walk in the wings of a Boeing 707 and 747. And they have also added on a sound and light show. So going to Longreach is a journey. You absolutely should do this experience, but also there's other opportunities to see things like the Stockman's Hall of Fame, and a whole range of things. So it really is a 3-day destination that really gives you a flavour of our cultural outback. So I've spoken to you enough this morning. I'm going to conclude with some footage that we shot in 2019 that just gives you a bit of the flavour. I do encourage you to see some of our cultural experiences and maybe participate, get involved in some of those immersive experiences. And at the moment, I should mention that Australian War Memorial one is available from April. The National Gallery of Australia one is due to be available again in February, and I think the rest of them are currently available. Opera Australia's obviously is dictated a bit about when the performances are actually on, but your agent can help you with that. So let me take you to some of this footage.
Two roads to choose. Where will we go today? Today we start anew. We'll explore every far-flung pocket of the world, discover new places we haven't been before. Run with the river, not walk the straight line. Just wanna live a life full of first times.
Cool. Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Jane. Great to have you with us today.
Thanks so much.
So I'm sure you've got a lot out of Jane's presentation. Make sure send those notes that you've made about the few things that you might want to explore to your Virtuoso travel advisor, and they'll be able to weave that into a itinerary for you, or maybe they'll put together an itinerary right away for you as well. And as I said to you at the very beginning, we're going to profile or reveal a couple of the Virtuoso partners right here in Australia. And the first was going to be one of my favourite city hotels. It's in Adelaide, one of the most underrated states of Australia, South Australia. But why is it one of my all-time favourite city hotels in here in Australia? There's 3 reasons. And the first one is I absolutely love the rooms. They are huge, spacious rooms, lots of area to relax in. But I didn't realise it. I was making notes in the preparation going, what do I love about the Mayfairs? Because I had one of the best sleeps I've ever had, not in my own bed. And then I did a bit more research and I found out they're actually custom-made beds here in Australia, right in South Australia, which explains everything. The second thing I love about the Mayfair, it's got one of the best rooftop bars in Australia, really intimate space called Hennessy's. Every time I'm there for work, I go up, they make a wicked Negroni, do my emails, make a few phone calls, do some notes, sitting there enjoying a vista of the great Adelaide city. And when my wife joins me for a long weekend after a couple of days of work, it becomes a great intimate space for us to have a pre-dinner drink. And the third reason, it's beautifully appointed, yes, but it's located right in the heart of Adelaide, which is fantastic. Now, I've said a lot. I reckon their video will fill in all the gaps for you. Told you you'd love it. Make sure you let your Virtuoso travel advisor know that next time you're in Adelaide, Mayfair should be on the top of your list. Now, our second Virtuoso member today is an absolute surprise. And I'm not going to ruin it because I found the video totally enthralling and mystical. I was really curious about where we were going with this. So let's roll the video and then I'll tell you all about it. I told you, what an absolute hidden gem. I'd never heard of it before, and I'm absolutely happy that I have now 12 exclusive private suites, luxury suites, right in South Yarra, opposite the Royal Botanic Gardens. It's called United Places Botanic Gardens, and I reckon you should probably drop a line to your Virtuoso travel advisor and let them know that next time you're in Melbourne, you might want to check it out. Look at those concierge services. It's exactly what this country is known for, those beautiful exclusive retreats like that. So unfortunately, that brings to a close today's webinar, the Tourism Australia and Virtuoso Great Destinations and Experiences of Australia webinar. But don't worry, it's not the end of your travels, because in half an hour, we'll be exploring the great golf courses of Australia. So maybe you want to just check in for that. Don't worry, you don't have to be a mad golfer with a handicap of under 10. You know, you could be like me, where my swing is my biggest handicap. First dad joke of golf so far. But maybe you've got somebody you know who loves golf. So tune in for that. It is actually quite fascinating, from really prestigious courses to quirky ones and everything in between. Also, I should let you know, this is the seventh of our seventh webinar in our series of 8. So there are 6 preceding this. Don't despair, because if you've enjoyed this one, and I'm sure you have, because Jane is such a fabulous and inspiring person, you may want to check out the 6 that we've already done. And so they are available, again, through your travel advisor, your Virtuoso travel advisor. So I'll tell you what they are, and maybe you want to send them an email and say, hey, can you send me the recording of this? So first of all, we started off with the amazing Luxury Lodges of Australia. Trust me, you really want to see that, because they are absolutely sublime. Followed by the Australian Wildlife Journeys. This is how to safari in Australia, and looks at much of the wilderness experiences that you probably didn't know were there, or you've often overlooked. Followed by the Great Fishing Adventures. Much like golf, it's not just for fishers. It's about great landscapes, great parts of Australia that you get to commune with in a very, very different way. And then we had Great Walks of Australia, which is a very, very hot way to travel these days. Again, 2 feet and a heartbeat, slows you down, gets to commune with nature in a very special way. And the services around these are really world class, and also a very, very sought after type of holiday, be it for just yourself or a group of friends, or as a family destination as well. Then we had something that's very close to my heart, the Discover Aboriginal Australia. If you really want to understand what this country is about and have an experience that is transformational, I would really encourage you to look at that. It's such an important part of our heritage that Australia needs to embrace, and I think that's a great starting point. And then something, finally, the 6th in our series of 8, was something that we've all been training for all our lives. Well, many of us have been, at least me, is the ultimate winery experiences. So much more than just dropping into a cellar door and having a swish and a swallow. It's actually really interesting experiences, from art to behind the scenes and everything in between. So that sums up all the available webinars to you. And on that note, I'm going to have to bid you farewell. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Quentin Long. It's been my absolute pleasure to have you. And until next time, happy travels.